What is up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be talking about what to do when you get third-partied in Fortnite, or just when you get caught off guard by somebody in general. As always, if you guys do find this video helpful and informative, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you like to see more, and also this video will be mostly for zero builds, but a lot of it will translate to build mode as well. One of the most important things you can use to deal with third parties or in situations where you get caught off guard and you're at like a damage deficit to start the fight is going to be mobility items that, especially in zero build, when you get caught into a bad situation or when things aren't going your way, it's very difficult to stop that like trend. And mobility is probably the only thing that can really solve that. You know, if you're out in the open and you just got fried, trying to fry them back and get damage on them, you're probably not going to win that damage race because you're already behind. Trying to sprint away probably isn't going to help. Bunkers or bubbles can be good, but they're very situational for pubs. People don't like carrying them as much. But mobility is very universal. Like, it's good for solving this problem of when you're getting third-partied or when you're caught off guard. It's good for pushing people. It's good for getting around the map faster. It's good for repositioning in a fight. So mobility is one of the most important things when it comes down to situations when you're getting third-partied. And this is one of the reasons why I prefer the katana to the ODM gear, because with the katana, when you use your mobility item, you're using it. It doesn't really matter what the opponent does to you unless you're so weak that they eliminate you before you get it off. But with the ODM gear, once they shoot you, your mobility goes on cooldown, and so you're really at the mercy of their aim whether or not you're able to use your mobility item. But just in general, mobility is the biggest thing to deal with getting third-partied, or like solve the situation where you're getting third-partied. And I feel like this is just the key. If you're not carrying mobility, start carrying mobility, and I feel like your performance in game will increase a lot. And then also, when it comes down to using these items, try to like save some uses to deal with unfortunate circumstances. You know, if you have a katana, let's say you have a purple one, and you just use all three of your dashes traveling around the map, and then you're sprinting out in the open afterwards, you don't have that extra charge to respond to getting shot. So don't use all your mobility out to the point where it's on cooldown when you actually need it. Ending fights fast is also like one of the most important things to reduce how much you get third-partied, because when you're fighting somebody, everybody in the lobby that's around you is going to hear that, and everybody in the game knows how effective third parties are because everyone in the game has died to it before or died to it several times over. So when you're in a fight, you need to end it quickly. Now, there's a balance here. You also don't want to take too much damage, and that's another problem in of itself. But you need to end fights fast while also not taking as much damage. And this is another way in which mobility comes into play. If you see a player out in the open, you get 120 damage on them with the red eye or your DMR, your sniper, whatever you're using, and then they go behind cover, you can either start shooting their cover out, which is going to take a considerable amount of time to break the cover, and then finish the player off, which gives them time to heal and respond to you shooting them. Or you can just use your mobility item and push them with this damage advantage that you've accrued. And that's going to allow you to end the fight much faster, while also not shooting as much and not putting yourself out there as much. Like I said earlier, there is a balancing act with this, because if you're just making dumb plays in every single fight, trying to end it as fast as possible, you're going to end up taking more damage, and that's going to leave you in a bad situation for when the third parties do show up. So when you do get a damage advantage on somebody, I feel like you want to press that advantage and get the elimination, but you also don't want to be so, bloodthirsty that you're just making bad plays all the time and taking a lot of damage. This is also one of the reasons why fast healing items are super important. If you're using something like chug splashes, slap juice, the slurp juice, it's much easier to end your fight and then pop that and go about your day, or use your splashes and go about your day, than it is to use something like a big pot or medkits. These slower healing items are going to leave you kind of like pinned down for longer before you get your health off, and this is going to make it easier for third parties to end up eliminating you after the fight. Also, if you do need to heal, try to find somewhere safe to heal. This is in build mode, you could just box up, but in zero build, I'll have this clip here of like these players fought on island, and I got lucky timing on it that I was rifting as they were fighting. And then the player who ended up winning that fight was just so worried about getting the heals off that he just used it out in the open, and then I was able to just easily eliminate him from the roof. So you need to be aware of your surroundings and where people might be, and if this means like going into a bush to heal, going into a building to heal, something along those lines to get your heals off, that way you're actually protected while doing so, it can definitely save your life. I feel like another big problem that a lot of like more newer players have is that when they eliminate somebody, there's all that loot there. Like, especially in a situation where maybe two people were fighting, you third party it, And then now there's like 2 people's worth of loot there. That could be a lot for somebody, or just in squads when there's like several teams that fought in an area, there's a lot of loot. And what a lot of newer players kind of don't really know is they don't immediately know what loot they want. So they kind of take a while to pick through the loot, decide what they're going to carry with them, and then go about their day. And this is a problem because, like I was saying, when you shoot off, everybody in the area is going to hear it. So the more that you're standing out in the open looting, the worse. So I would recommend kind of having in mind what you want to carry or what you want to use and what potential upgrades there are to your loadout. You know, if you want to use Havoc Pump, SMG, Red Eye, Heals, Mobility, and you already have Heals and Mobility, a Gold Red Eye, and the Mythic Pump, then really all you should be looking at is the spray weapons and maybe if there's a better SMG for you. But if you already have a good SMG, it probably really isn't even worth like sifting through the loot that much. So just be mindful of what you actually want. You don't really need to pick through and identify every single item that exists there. You know, you just got to be mindful of what you want out of that loot and like in what ways that your inventory can be improved. You would be surprised. I noticed this a lot in my spectating videos where some people are just like kind of taking way too long to like sift through the loot after like cleaning up a fight or whatever. And it really, really does hold them back. And the biggest thing that I think, or one of the biggest things that comes into getting third-partied or getting caught off guard in situations is just being mindful of where you are. So like there's some spots on the map that are just always going to be hot and always going to be like rife with third parties. The best example of this, or the easy examples of this, would be the island this season. If you're fighting on the island after it spawns, you could be pretty certain that you're going to get third-partied in every situation that occurs there. It's very rare that you just like fight one person on the island and then it's chill. And then like maybe like a minute later, somebody else comes. Usually like several people are crashing on into the island at once. So be mindful of this. You know, if you fight on the house and you end up getting that kill, but you take a lot of damage yourself, drop down into the house to use your heals rather than just standing up top. Little things like that can go a huge way in saving your life. Just being aware of where you are on the map and how likely it is that you're getting third party. Because if you're just on the extreme edge of the map, it's probably not that big of a deal. But if you're fighting on Loot Island, if you're fighting in like the center of zone, around one of those combat supply caches, things like this, these mid-match objectives are definitely going to get you third partied. If you're going for one of the vaults in the Mythic Pump, always be mindful that like there's probably people there waiting to try to third party you when you're eliminating the boss or camping the vault. Just being aware of these common situations, I feel like can make it much easier. Also, another big thing, a mistake a lot of players make, and I myself do, and I'll have a clip of it here, is that they get too tunnel visioned in a fight, and then they're not really aware of how easy of a target they're making themselves. So there's this clip here where I had this player really weak, and I just wanted to eliminate them because they kept getting away from me, but I was way too tunnel visioned on them here, and I end up pushing when I don't really need to. And then another player is like fries me from a bush. We end up getting some damage back on them, and then I'm able to win this game anyways, just because this final player wasn't very good. But had this player been a better fighter, then I would have lost this game because I was way too tunnel vision on the player that I had weak. So when you have someone weak, like sure, you want to get that kill, but you don't need to be putting yourself in the worst situations imaginable just to get that kill. Visual audio can also be super helpful. This is a setting in the audio settings, like visualize sound effects, puts little indicators on your screen. There's indicators for players' footsteps, players using their weapons, and the katana does show as like somebody shooting, so you'll know when people around you are using the katana. And then also the ODM gear shows on it, and I've found that the ODM gear on visual audio shows from a much further distance than what I actually end up hearing it. Visual audio and just using the audio in game to your advantage is a big like help in a lot of the things I was talking about. Knowing where other players are, knowing where you're likely to get pushed from a third party, just overall increases your awareness in game, and visual audio is a very, very good setting. I would highly recommend using it if you're not using it. I wish it wasn't as overpowered as it is, but like it is what it is. And then one thing I also want to talk about is that unfortunately, especially in zero build, a lot of players play in-game just to third party. A lot of players just end up doing nothing the entire time. So if you're in a like relatively small zone and there's like 4 people left, you could be pretty certain that the moment you shoot and make yourself a target, everybody else is going to be like sniping back at you or trying to just third party you. So in these situations, unfortunately, it just usually turns out that the last person to get involved in the fight ends up winning it. So just keep that in mind when you do have a really slow in-game. When you do get third-partied, I think the biggest thing you can do is, like I said, use mobility. but you need to break line of sight from between you and the opponent. The mistake a lot of players make, especially with the ODM gear right now, is they just try to run for the sake of running. And that can be nice, but most players are going to chase you. So you need to run to like some sort of position of advantage. Use your ODM gear, use your katana to get there. Some piece of cover that you can use to turn back and shoot the opponent. That clip I showed of me getting tunnel visioned, a lot of why I was able to survive that was because I tagged the person back for like 80 damage once I got to cover. And that kind of allowed me to get heals off and like play a little bit more slower in that situation and just kind of like, you know, regain my awareness of the situation. You don't want to just run. You want to run to a position of advantage where you can turn the fight. A lot of times this is going to be cover. If you're on island, it can be dropping down into the house and then playing right shoulder peek and getting like the damage back on the opponent that you need. But when you just run and you panic and you don't really fight back at all, there's not really a time where you're going to eliminate the opponent and then stay alive in that game. It's really just at the mercy of like how long they're willing to chase you if you get to live. But when you get to cover and get some damage back on the person, oftentimes people will put themselves in really bad spots just because they're chasing you and they think they have the advantage. This is another reason why mobility and fast heals are so important, because if you can katana to a rock, you know, get 2 or 3 red eye shots on him and then drink a slurp, now you kind of have the upper hand in that fight because you have damage on them. You have them playing at the back foot and all your health is regenerating off your slurp. And that's like an easy situation for you to turn that fight. But that is going to be it for today's video. I hope you guys found it helpful or informative. It's not really too much you could do once you get third partied or once you get caught off guard. It really just comes down to getting to somewhere safe and then trying to get pressure back on the opponent rather than just running. But there's a lot of things you can do to minimize how much you're getting third partied or how big of a deal it is when you get third partied. That's mainly what I focused on in this video. I hope you guys found it helpful or informative. If you did, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you like to see more, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. Oh my gosh. Dude, what was that game?